Hello and welcome back to Chats with Jeannie. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it that you're here listening along. And today we are going to talk about putting yourself out there. I'm going to specifically relate it to social media, but it could be in any context, honestly. Putting yourself out there, showing a little bit more of who you really are, stepping into your authentic self and inviting people into your world. And is it worth it? Hmm. So, just recently, within the last couple of months, I've kind of opened up this conversation there on my own social media. And I've had a lot of people reach out with, like, oh, like, I really want to start sharing. I really want to show up in my truth, but I'm too afraid, or like this horrible thing happened to me. And it's like, ooh, I don't know. It's scary. It's weird. It makes me really uncomfortable. And if you're also like that, I'm also like that, to be honest with you. Oh, God, it has been a journey and a half. So, before we dive in, if this is a topic that's been on your mind, or maybe it's this little seed is ready to be planted in you somewhere about showing up and sharing more of yourself with the world, calling in your people, starting your community, if that's something that is on your heart, or somewhere in your energy field, let's just tune in for a second. So, if you can, I invite you to close your eyes, or if not, just keeping a soft gaze and taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And that feeling of when you put yourself out there, you put out your unique individual frequency out into the world. People are coming back to you to tell you these things. How do you feel about that? What comes up in your body? Is it excitement, fear, both, nervousness? Is it a full hell no, not right now? Just take another 30 seconds to just let that marinate. That feeling of you showing up and putting yourself out there. Good. And just taking a little bit of a note in yourself, what came up for you? Is this something that you're wanting to do? Is this something that you're already doing, but you're just looking for extra support with? Or maybe not. Maybe you're not sure. So just keeping that with you as you listen to this and making sense of what we talk about here in your own life. That's what it's all about, right? So, sharing yourself, putting yourself out there, specifically on social media, it's a big one. And I'm not going to lie to you, I have far from figured this out. Like the seed of putting myself out there and showing up is who I really am. Like that seed was, let's say that was planted like a couple of years ago. And then my little seedling was working hard to push through the dirt. And then there were periods of drought and then periods of uncertainty. And like, am I going to make it? Am I not? Like, should I go forward? Should I just retreat back and stay in my safe little cocoon? And at this point, literally like within months, I've just about sprouted through that dirt. And I'm like, okay, world, here I am. So just checking in with yourself. Where are you along that path of starting to put yourself out there or putting yourself out there to the world? And I want to talk about specifically the fears that come up with it. Because it's like there's a lot of big emotions that come up with putting yourself out there. I know they have for me and with other people that have shared with me so far. So I want to give a little bit of a backstory. And I'm going to take you all the way back to grammar school, elementary school, I was very young, and I was teased heavily for my weight. It started with like I was chubby and I noticed that I looked different from the other girls, or my school uniform fit a little different than everybody else, like just kind of noticing that I was different. And then the kids chime in, like especially, the boys chime in. Like I remember that horrible game of Would You Rather, and it was like, would you rather kiss Jeannie or kiss so and so? And just like that feeling like that people are talking about you and they're not saying nice things and they're ridiculing who you are and how you ap- appear to the world, right? So I was teased for being chubby when I was a kid. And then I was teased after that when I lost weight, even like, oh, Jeannie, are you going to eat that dessert, or you should give it to me so you don't get fat again? Like, those comments that just, they stay with you somewhere in your psyche, right? And honestly, I think those people, like, I'm not sharing this for any sympathy or like victimhood. Like those experiences, they made me who I am now. And they didn't know any better either. The people that say that have some shit to say about you, like especially young, and then bullying. Really, all that is because they'll point out the shit in you because they're so afraid what's going to happen if somebody sees the shit in them first. So that's all that is, ho'oponopono, like thank you, all of them, right? But I'm sharing this because I want you to know that like these fears are very real within me too. Like my inner child is like, oh God, like let's hide, let's not be noticed because people are going to be mean and they're going to put you down and you're going to feel worse about yourself. And then, I went through this, like touching on the being overweight as a kid and being teased that way. I think it's a lot more accepting now, but back then, no, it was not. And then I went, I turned it into this big, huge thing of like radical self love. But first going at war with my body. Like I probably could have wrote a book on fad diets by the time that I was 18. Like, does anybody remember that like bullshit, the South Beach diet and the like all that crap? But that's a topic for another day, anyways. But it's all good, is what I'm trying to say. Like we will get ridiculed. People will point out our insecurities. They'll smell it like a hunting dog trying to find its catch. Like people will see it, but it's okay. So let's dive a little bit deeper. So these fears are very real within us, and they come up for a reason. It is very scary to get on there and show who you really are, right? And then I'm going to take you back a couple of years ago when I decided that I was ready to start stepping into my purpose. I wanted to teach yoga so bad, and I was like really afraid to do it. I wanted to, show up and lead and share these experiences with people, but it was like, oh my gosh, do I know enough? Am I enough? Like all those little stories. And then when it comes to sharing online, on social media, I eventually became very comfortable and confident sharing tips about yoga or like stuff to help your joints, or things that are just kind of neutral, that it's just like I'm just regurgitating this fact that I learned to present it to you, and then you could take it or leave it. Like that's still very powerful. I love teaching, I love learning, I love listening to all that type of stuff. But it hits a little different when you're sharing, like, okay, this is my vulnerable life. This is who I am. This is what I believe. This is my vision. And perfect segue into my next point, because this whole topic is sharing yourself a little bit more truthfully, a little bit more vulnerably online. And is it worth it? Why the hell could that be worth it, right? If our inner childs, our inner teens, and our insecurities are screaming, like, don't do it. What are you doing? No way. Are you crazy? Well, to me, why it's worth it. Why it's worth it to face this stuff. I would say I have two big reasons. And I'm wondering what you think about this and what your reasons are as well. Reason number one is that I had a vision. I had a vision far greater than any of those little voices, any of those insecurities, any of that pain that I experienced or embarrassment or any of that. I had this vision of connecting with people all over the world, like minded people, cheering each other on, feeling heart to heart connection, building those friendships based on truth. Not based on hiding, not based on pulling ourselves back and holding ourselves back. And I'm not talking about like sharing all your most vulnerable, deep, darkest, private, dirty little secrets. No, 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 no. I'm just talking about sharing your authentic truth, your frequency, who you really are without all the masks, right? There's some things that are just private and you please, leave those private, leave that for your closest friends and family. However, when we hide ourselves behind all these layers because we're so afraid of what people are going to say, I don't know. I just feel like we'd really be missing out on all those people who really see you and really relate to you, but the only way to ever call them in is to show yourself, right? Like we always say, calling in our tribe, gathering our people, but like the only way to do that is if we put ourselves out there to be found. So anyway, is it worth it? So I had this vision of connecting with people all over the world, building community. I didn't know why, I didn't know how, I didn't know what, and I haven't done it yet, but that's still my vision, and that's why I'm here doing this. So that's number one. Number two is this has been one of the greatest empowerment tools of my life. Like, this has been one of my biggest fears of showing up, putting myself out there. What are they going to say? What is my mom going to say? What is this going to say? What are my aunts and uncles going to say? What are those assholes from grammar school going to say? Right? But then believing in myself enough to do it anyways. And just like watching the fucks fade away little by little. Then they come back and then they fade away and they get more distant, more distant, more distant. And it's like every person that I've built this connection with now since I started putting myself out there, like that power is so much greater than those fears. Because those fears, like, yes, they are real, but they're not really a threat. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you agree? Or do you disagree? Hmm. So is it worth it? I say yes. I say it is one of the most worth it things that you could ever do in your life. Because we want to be around like minded people. We want to be around people that see us, that encourage us, that cheer us on. And this is the road to that. It starts with you. And it's going to be messy. Like, it's not linear. I was talking about this with quite a few people, like a vulnerability hangover. Like, oh my God, every time I'll go and I share online or I share somewhere, whatever, it's like then I like get this little like, oh God, did I just say that? Like, ugh, it's so cringy. Like, you feel like a bit drained. But that feeling is starting to get less and less and less and less. And will it ever go away? I don't think so because we're human. But what keeps growing is my knowing and belief that it's just so important and it's so worth it. And I'm touching on social media here. I just was having this conversation with one of my friends actually. She was like, do you think it's necessary to do it through social media? Do you think it's necessary for growth and evolution? I don't think it's like social media is the magic tool. It's just personally, that's what I was most afraid of. So that's where I knew I needed to lean in the most. Hmm. And at one point, it was teaching yoga classes, was what I was the most afraid of. So that's where I needed to lean in the most. And I really, truly believe like the things we're the most afraid of, and I'm not talking like getting murdered or like those types of, I'm talking those little insecurity, like within fears where you don't have this big, huge external threat. Like it's really your own mind that's telling you that this is scary. Like I believe that those are the most important things that you will ever do in your life because they're scary to you because you care. They're scary to you because it's important to you. So if social media doesn't resonate, I invite you to just take that right out and put in whatever it is that like sounds scary and exciting and brings up a lot of emotion for you because that's kind of like your little signpost of like, hey, 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 this way, this is the next level. Are you ready to level up? Are you ready to do this? Hmm. And that's another point. That's another thing I talked about actually with this same friend about like, doing it like if you're not really ready to hold the backlash that you might receive, could it do more harm than good? And personally, I feel like that's really an individual thing. And you use your own discernment. You use your intuition. You use like, is this right for me right now? But how I think about it is like same thing in yoga, right? So I practice Ashtanga yoga. It's quite dynamic. There's a lot of positions and places you put your body and your limbs, and it takes time. And you do it little by little, daily, every day, these little efforts, and then you get closer and closer. Like if I went to go like straight into I'm working on wheel pose right now. Like if I just like forced my body to go up into that thing every single day and like jammed it in and like I would get injured, likely. I would probably be able to do it eventually. Like, I'd probably be able to do it maybe even faster. I'd probably get injured. But it's like, instead, you work on these things little by little every day. You meet your edge, you rub up against that sticky point, and then you learn to move and breathe and be with yourself in that point. And then every day that you do it, it becomes a little bit easier, a little bit closer. Maybe, or maybe you stay at the same point for a while, but you know that you're working towards it. And one of my teachers, like, it's so powerful what he says. He says, it's not the pose, it's the way that you show up for the pose that matters. So it's not even the outcome, like, okay, like, did you start this big, huge, amazing community and, share your whole vulnerable thing story online? Like, no, 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 no. It's more about the way that you're approaching it, the way that you're showing up for it, and you're just allowing yourself to be a little bit more visible than you were before. And if it doesn't feel safe to move a little bit further, then stay right where you are until it does. But then you go within and you're saying, okay, why? Like, what is here? What isn't here? Is there stuff that I'm carrying that's not mine? Can I release any of it? Is it serving me? Our bodies, even like I'm doing this embodiment coaching with people and we're going into our bodies. And a lot of it is like, okay, we're carrying this burden, we're carrying this shell, this pain, this heaviness. But when we take it out, we start to have a conversation with it. It's like, it always is like, well, I was there to protect you. So for example, when I was a little girl and I was being teased about being overweight, I built these patterns in my body and my energy of like, okay, my shoulders are rounded. Like, I don't, I'm not being seen because the less I'm seen, the less I'll get made fun of. So that was there to protect me. But then now I can take that off because I don't give a fuck if people are going to make fun of me. Well, no, I do, but I'm ready to not. I'm ready to work towards not caring because I believe this greater vision and I believe that it's way far more important to call in the people that really can relate, really connect, really be with me and I can be with them and this is like where we're meant to be. I feel like that has far greater power than what anyone's negative words could say, even if it hurts. So it's just removing those layers of protection that absolutely served you because when I was a young girl, I needed it to cope. I needed it to survive. But now that I've grown and I've evolved, I'm ready to start taking it off. How about you? Are you ready to start taking off that next layer that's been holding you back? Because I can sure as shit tell you that the people who you're here to help and connect with and build these relationships with, they are ready. They are ready for you. And I know that with the deepest part of my being. Yeah. And circling back to social media, all it is a tool. And there's so many tools. Whether you want to write a book, whether you want to, go attend that workshop and meet new people in your community or whatever it is, it's scary for a reason. And another one of my friends, she shared this with me a couple years ago when I was like so afraid to start teaching. Shared, I think it was before my first class. She said, "You know what, Jeannie? Nervousness and excitement, it's the same energy. It's the same energy in your body." So it's like things that are the most exciting to us can be the scariest. And yes, I think it's worth it. Do you? Wow. Thank you so much for listening to this. It's very powerful to come on here and share. So I really want to hear from you. Like, what came up from you? What came up for you? Did this stir something in you? Did it motivate or trigger, piss you off? I want to know. I want to continue this conversation, continue talking about it because it's an important one. Because part of this vision is imagining a world where we all can be ourselves freely. We can show up authentically. And it really seems like we are moving towards that. We're moving further and further into that direction. But yeah, let me know what came up for you. And thank you so much for your time, your energy, your attention, listening to this. I really appreciate your comments, likes, shares, and subscribes. And I really appreciate it to everyone who reached out to me after the first episode. That meant the world to me. It means the world to me that you're here. And thank you so much. And I'll see you next time.